O heavenly King, Comforter, Spirit of truth, Word everywhere present and filleth all things, treasury of blessings and giver of life, come and dwell within us, cleanse us of all stain, and save our souls, O gracious one. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Michael Lofton Show. I want to talk about Pope Francis, who just today spoke up once again as a pastor, as a shepherd of the Catholic Church, and has once again clarified the church's perspective for anybody who is still confused on the question of blessings for persons of the same sex. This has been an ongoing struggle and battle in the Catholic Church, as you know. It's been going on for quite some time now. You probably recall that back in December, there was, and really even going back to October, I should say, yeah, actually all the way back to October, there was a huge controversy that suggested, Pope Francis is about to open the door to blessing gay unions. And, people were freaking out because it's like, okay, the Pope's now going to bless in. That's, first of all, you're completely contradicting the faith if you're to bless sin. It's like, why are we even Christian anymore if we're going to abandon this? And then number two, didn't you just say, Pope Francis, in 2021 that you can't bless unions of persons of the same sex? So there was a lot of people who were just really confused, and there was just a whole bunch of suspicion that Pope Francis is going to change church teaching. And whenever Fiducia Supplicans came out, most people did not actually read the document, and they just started seeing a ton of headlines saying that Pope Francis now authorized blessings for gay unions, and people just lost their minds. Well, I have to say, if you bought into that narrative, you were played. They played you. That's the sad truth. Should you be upset about that? Yeah. Yeah, you should be. Not only should you be upset that they played you, you should also be upset that they're continuing to play you because they still won't retract and correct the record. Despite the fact that Pope Francis has been very gracious in clarifying the church's perspective over and over, not that the document needed clarity, but rather more clarity was needed because of the critics who confused things and twisted things. And Pope Francis, as a shepherd, has been just very gracious in continuing to um, tell people what the truth is and set the record straight. And he just did it again today. Pope Francis says to priests, bless the persons, not the union. That's straight from Pope Francis. So again, all those headlines, all those news outlets, all those content creators who told you Pope Francis says it's okay to bless gay relationships or gay unions, you were played, and you have every right to be upset. But you should be even more upset by the fact that they still haven't set the record straight. Let's look at the article from Vatican News here that talks about this. It's pretty short. It says, Pope Francis, bless the persons, not the union. There's a headline you won't see. There's something they will be silent about. I mean, shouldn't this be taking the media by storm right now? Why is it that you've probably only heard about this from this channel? Why is this the first place you've heard of it? Why isn't it CNN, NBC? Why isn't it Fox? Why isn't it all those secular media outlets who are saying one thing? And why isn't all those Catholic content creators who are saying that Pope Francis is now authorizing blessing of gay unions? Why isn't this headline taking the media by storm? You should be upset. They played you. It continues in an address to the plenary assembly of the Dicastery for the Doctrine of the Faith. Pope Francis discusses the sacraments, human dignity, evangelization, and fiducia supplicans. Pope Francis addressed the Dicastery on Friday as the department brought its annual plenary assembly to a close. It continues, thanking officials for their precious work. The Pope recalled that in 2022 reform of the Roman Curia, he divided the dicastery into two sections, one concerned with doctrine and the other with discipline. It was the former subject, the Pope said, he wanted to touch on his address, and he offered a number of thoughts organized around these words: sacraments, dignity, and faith. The first word that Pope Francis touched on in his address was sacraments. Sacraments, he said, feed and make grow the life of the church, he said, and thus require special care on the part of those who administer them. Let us, the Pope urged the DDF officials, love and cherish the beauty and saving power of the sacraments. Pope Francis then moved on to discuss dignity, noting that the DDF is working on a document on this subject. I hope, he said, that it will help us as a church to always be close to those who, without fanfare, in concrete daily life, fight and personally pay the price for defending the rights of those who are disregarded. And then here we go. The Pope's third subject, faith, was that the one he dwelt on for the Pope's third subject, faith, was the one he dwelt on for the longest period. We cannot hide the fact, he said, that in large areas of the planet, faith, as Benedict XVI put it, no longer constitutes an obvious prerequisite for common living. Indeed, Pope Francis noted, faith is often denied, mocked, marginalized, and ridiculed. The proclamation and communication of faith in today's world, he said, must therefore take a number of factors into account. In particular, Pope Francis specified the new urban cultures with their many challenges, but also the unprecedented questions of meaning they raise, the need for missionary conversion of ecclesial structures, and finally, the centrality of the proclamation in the life and mission of the church. It is here, the Pope said, that help is expected from the dicastery. And now in reference to blessings for persons of the same sex. It was in this context of evangelization, Pope Francis continued, that he wanted to mention the recent declaration Fiducia Supplicans. The purpose of the pastoral and spontaneous blessings discussed in the declaration, the Pope stressed, is to concretely show the closeness of the Lord and the church to all who, finding themselves in different situations, ask for help to continue, sometimes to begin a journey of faith. In this regard, the Pope emphasized 2 points. Firstly, he said, these blessings outside of any liturgical context and form do not require moral perfection to be received. And secondly, he noted, when a couple spontaneously approaches a minister and asks for them, he is not blessing the union, but simply the people together who together have requested it. Not the union, the Pope stressed, but the persons, naturally taking into account the context, sensitivities, the places where one lives, and the most appropriate ways to do it. So let's read that again. Not the union, the Pope stressed, but the persons. Let's read it again. Not the union, but the persons. Memorize it. Tattoo it on your forehead if you have to at this point. Not the union, but the persons. It is so abundantly clear. This is what I've been saying from day one in the reading of the document. It is abundantly clear. Paragraph 5, the union is not what is blessed, it's persons. You can see that in paragraph 31. You can see it in paragraph 38. It's the persons, not the union. Not the union, but the persons, the Pope stressed. That should be the headline that you should see right now all over social media, but they are silent. You should be upset. They played you. Let me give you just a couple headlines. Here's The Hill. Notice what it says. Priests can bless same-sex unions, Pope says. Did he really? That's so weird because the document says the contrary. And Pope Francis again now says not the union, but persons. They played you. Here's another one, NBC News. Pope Francis opened the door Monday for some Catholic priests to bless same-sex unions. Oh, really? Because the document says otherwise and Pope Francis says otherwise. They played you. Here's another one. Famous politician. Pope Francis is now allowing priests to bless same-sex unions. Oh, really? Because the document says otherwise and the Pope says otherwise. They played you. And it's not just secular media. It is a ton of Catholic content creators and Catholic news agencies. They played you, and you should be upset. And not only in this instance, they've been playing you in other areas too. This is just one notable instance. Why won't they come out and set the record straight? You should be upset about that as well. Pretty interesting, though. I don't suppose they are going to come out and say, hey guys, sorry, we completely butchered this. Because if they did that, they would lose all credibility. And you would also have to then question everything else that they've been telling you. And you should. Because other things that they've been telling you are also often skewed. This is tragic. Back in October, they conditioned you to believe Pope Francis was going to do this. Back in October, there were already headlines from Catholics and even the secular news saying Pope Francis is going to open the door to blessing gay unions. So as soon as Fiducia Supplicans dropped, people didn't care what the document actually said. They had already been conditioned to embrace this error, regardless of what Pope Francis actually said. And then when it came out, it explicitly rejects blessing unions of persons of the same sex, but that didn't matter because people were already conditioned to believe that he was going to approve of it. And so all the headlines came out saying he approved it, and yet he didn't. And multiple times now, Cardinal Fernandez and even Pope Francis have stressed, no, it's the persons, not the union. Persons, not union. But we still have the same critics still publicly criticizing the magisterium and what it has taught on a false basis, on false grounds. You will still see cardinals, you will still see bishops, you will still see priests, you will still see theologians who will publish publicly content saying that Pope Francis is opening the door to blessing sin and to blessing gay relationships. You'll still see that. Though it's abundantly clear, the document excludes that. Pope Francis has said over and over, that's not true. They will still continue with the narrative. So it's not like they will just disappear and not say anything. That would be bad enough, and you should be upset because it's like, look, if you butchered this that badly, you should say something. But it's not like they will just disappear and be silent. Nope. They will not only not be silent, they will continue to double down with the false narrative because they're committed to it at this point. They can't just say, sorry, guys, we're wrong. They would lose all credibility at that point. How sad that this is what we've come to in the Catholic Church, where you now have Catholics fighting against the church itself. I hope this was helpful in shedding some light. If you perhaps didn't know the truth and this was helpful for you, please let me know. Put that in the comment section. I'd like to know if this was actually helpful or if I'm just wasting my time and just preaching to the choir. I'd like to know if this was an eye-opener for you. Put that in the comment section. While you're at it, hit the like button and especially the subscribe button. All right, stay tuned. Got more content coming up today. See y'all in just a little bit. God bless. Have you ever heard someone say that Pope Francis denied the existence of hell, or Pope Francis worshipped an idol in the Vatican gardens? There are many claims that have been made about Pope Francis for over a decade, and many of them are inaccurate. I've set the record straight in my free ebook called Top 10 Lies About Pope Francis Exposed. Get your free copy today by visiting reason.podia.com. Have you ever noticed that certain Catholic teachings are classified differently? For example, some are called dogmas and others are called doctrines. And then a denial of one of these teachings might be called heretical, while a denial of another might just be called an error. In reality, there are many classifications to various teachings that may be found in the Catholic Church. In my course, The Theological Notes, I offer a crash course on this system that will prepare you to identify a teaching's classification more easily. And I'll also help you determine what level of assent or adherence you are required as a Catholic to give to a particular doctrine. So, if you would like to take this course, visit reason.podia.com.